In this video, I am going to talk you through some examples of the visual artifact project from a previous semester. And I want to really highlight in here these two learning objectives for the week. Your ability to demonstrate that you can make rhetorical decisions about a visual representation of an argument, and that you can demonstrate an ability to reflect on and describe that decision-making process in a formal reflection. In the Project 3 assignment, and I read this in the other video this week, you're going to rhetorically represent the ideas from your researched argument conference paper into a visual artifact that you design. That means that if you are composing an image, if you are using an infographic, if you are developing some kind of other slideshow, it's primarily visual and you create the images. And if you are not creating the images, you are compiling them in an original way and citing them appropriately. This artifact and a blurb, a little paragraph describing what your argument is and why you're displaying it that way, just a few sentences, nothing big, will be on display at the CLC Student Writing Showcase. The artifact, as long as it's something you can submit digitally, will also go into your portfolio. If it's something big like a poster, then you'll probably leave that with me, so I'll have the hard copy. Along with that, you're going to consider your decision-making process in a 300 to 500 word reflection, and this reflection will go in your OneDrive portfolio. So I want you to work through the questions in these bullet points. What became important to you as you worked on this project? That could mean Project 3 overall, as well as the visual artifact part of the project. Were there material or time constraints that factored into your composing process in Project 3? Or in creating the visual artifact itself? In terms of the visual artifact, how did you decide, or the essay, how did you decide on a starting point based on audience and the message you wanted to send? Specifically, as you think about the visual part of the project, explain your individual choices in terms of your visual argument. Why did you pick the materials you picked? Any colors you used? How you've laid out the visual aspects of the project? Why things are sized the way they are, what fonts you might use, how you're using white space, how you're balancing images, what you're choosing to emphasize. Why did you make the visual choices that you did in representing your argument in a visual way? And thinking about those projects or those choices, are they effective? When you think about the artifact alongside the overall essay, and you think about your audience, are those effective choices? How do you see yourself using rhetorical appeals in your project? Think back to the rhetorical appeals that we studied in Project 1. How are you using those? Which appeals are you emphasizing? Where do we see evidence of those rhetorical appeals in your visual project? And finally, what can you tell about yourself as a Redder from completing this project? What can you tell about yourself in terms of being somebody who makes these specific choices to create an argument and to have a persuasive effect on their audience? So those are things you're going to write about in that 300 to 500 word reflection. Probably the most effective thing for us to do in this video is to look at a couple of examples so that you can see how other students have created visual representations of their argument in the past. And I'll say also, I do have a handful of examples left in my office, and I can share those with you if you stop in to the workshop early this week. Before we look at the student examples, I just want to come back to the article we read at the beginning of the semester. College students aren't cuddly bunnies. And I just want to look at the image for a second. I'm not going to dissect this image in this video and really break down the image visually and rhetorically, but in a way, this image does present something related to the argument that Hanlon is making in that text. These students are certainly not soft, cuddly bunnies. They're certainly emotional, but I get a sense when I look at this video or at this picture that their emotions are thoughtful, that they matter. And that is one way that we could think about some of the ideas that he presents in that article when he describes reason and emotion as a false dichotomy, that those things often work in concert with each other, and that if somebody's having emotions about something, there's a reason for that, historical, contextual, whatever. So this visual becomes an important part of the argument, or a way of representing that argument even. This is the kind of thing you're thinking about in your project, and you're not going to be using someone else's picture to do that work, but you might, if you enjoy photography, you might take an image that makes your point and makes your argument. That could be one way to go. I went through and downloaded a couple of examples from last semester, so I want to pull those up. I think we'll look at the reflection or the explanations that those students wrote first. And they had a little bit longer, they had to do like an audio project with this as well, which we're not doing. I'm going to focus on just some parts of the student's reflection. Her topic was on concussions and understanding the impact of those concussions on student athletes beyond the physical impact. So I want to start reading right here. When I first began the essay, I believed my intended audience was the student athletes specifically. However, after reading multiple sources, I noticed that my audience extended beyond just the athletes. My audience would also include parents that have kids in sports, professionals in healthcare, and individuals who have sustained concussion previously, as well as their families. And then she writes about sources that would help with that, referencing the American Academy of Pediatrics and of Neurology, and some other studies that were conducted. In terms of the visual artifact itself, the student writes, establishing my ethos as a writer carried forward in my visual artifact as I made choices for my theme and organization. First, I chose the color blue to represent me as a writer. Blue symbolizes meanings of trust, wisdom, confidence, and intelligence. Okay, so we can see that represented here in the image of the head, which is also there because of thinking about concussions. But blue is carried them throughout the text. Next, I picked orange to go along with the blue as they are complementary colors and it would make my artifact visually appealing to my audience's eyes. Okay, visual appeal is really important. We're thinking about artifacts that people will want to look at, that might make them say, oh, let me get a little bit closer to that and read some more about it. So images that are too busy, that have too many colors, or have color contrast that is just hard to see or hard to look at for a long time, probably won't have as a welcome a reception for an audience at the student writing showcase or in other venues as something that is more complementary like this. Lastly, I established my layout around my point of emphasis, which is the head silhouette in the center of the page. I put that in the middle since my main message to get across to my audience is how a concussion can affect you for the rest of your life. Okay, so overall the student has created an infographic. That's the genre that she is working with here. An infographic is a genre where you take statistics and facts about a topic and present those in a way that's carefully arranged and visually impactful. So we can see that she's highlighting some of the percentages, that we can see here different ways that concussions might affect you. Big statistics that might be really eye-catching, okay? So if your argument, your research argument has a lot of compelling statistics in it, you might want to consider an infographic as a way to visually represent that. You can make infographics in PowerPoint but you might also want to take a look at Piktochart. That is a Piktochart has some video tutorials on it that you can use for just learning how to make it. You can use it for free. You shouldn't have to purchase anything to be able to create these. So that might be a good tool to check out. Okay, I want to check out the other student's artifact. The student made a one-page poster. I don't think she used Piktochart, but she may have used something else. And her paper was on why you should get a flu shot. This is something you're probably hearing a lot about, not just in the larger conversation around vaccines, but even on campus where we can get free flu shots that can help us stay healthier living and working in a college environment. So she's titled her page List of Reasons Why You Should or Shouldn't Get the Flu Shot. And here are a whole bunch of reasons why you should get it. Here's a reason why you shouldn't if you're allergic to it. And she's using that to make her point here. The benefits far outweigh the negatives. Get vaccinated today. So you could imagine maybe this, when I see something like this, I see a big topic that would get my attention. Use of visual space, showing the weighting of these two sides, and this big message. Like, this is what the student wants her audience to see, right? Well, let's check out what she says about it.
My visual artifact for my Project 3B argument is a very efficient way of presenting the information about my topic to the audience. I know that my audience may not be willing to stop in the middle of scrolling through their Twitter feeds to read paragraphs upon paragraphs of me arguing in full detail the benefits of vaccinations, but they will stop for something else. An eye-catching, aesthetically pleasing post, like the ones you find yourself browsing through carelessly in your free time. This post incorporates a simplistic, straight-to-the-point indication of the message being portrayed. With the negatives highlighted in red and the positives bolded in green, this stop-and-go correlation signals to the viewer's brain almost immediately at first glance what this post is communicating.
Okay, so we get a sense from that quick elevator pitch that she knows that her audience, other college students and other young adults, may not be as likely to be she's thinking really about how they're engaging with these kinds of messages, and they might come across them if they're scrolling. This might make them stop and think. So she's got her audience at the forefront of her mind while she's creating this visual. Okay, so creating this visual artifact is one of your major tasks for this week, alongside putting final revisions into Project 3. And creating the visual artifact might even help you think about some of those final revisions, and as you are working on it, you might realize some things that you want to emphasize or reorganize in the essay version of your argument. The two examples that I shared with you were digital examples, but if you are more of a crafty, like construction paper, tape and glue kind of person, you can certainly craft 3D versions of things or something on a poster board. And if you decide to do that, I'm just going to ask that you deliver it to my office on Monday the 2nd so that I can look at it and check it out and read your reflections and give you a grade, but also so that we have it there for the student writing showcase. So just keep that in mind. And like I said, I've got some examples in my office right now from last year and years before that you might want to look at to get some inspiration. So I'll have those out at our workshop tomorrow, Monday of Thanksgiving week. So if you've already missed that part, if you want to run an idea by me, you just want to send me an email or talk with me about something, please send me a message and we can set up that conversation. I hope you have a great week.